Hi, I'm LadyJenevia, and today's video is a spoiler review of Dickinson Season 3, Episode 6, titled A Little Madness in the Spring. From what I could tell from skimming Twitter, it seems like some people were already aware of the fact that the Dickinsons would be going to an institution together. I don't know why some of you know that, or why there has been a total inability to just keep things quiet. It's indicative of a total disregard for letting people experience the magic of things unspoiled, but nonetheless, let's get into it. The first thing to do is reveal the do not reveal spoiler for episode 6. This is what was on the list of things that no one was supposed to reveal in their reviews and coverage before the episode aired. For episode 6, the do not reveal spoiler was the fact that Austin receives a draft card. That was, of course, the big revelation that came at the end of the episode, but since we are already on the topic of Austin, we can talk about his and Sue's story that takes place in this episode. We've seen in the past couple of episodes that they had this rift in their relationship as new parents, where Sue kept blocking Austin from being able to connect emotionally with the new baby. He kept getting pushed away until he finally snapped and started demanding a divorce and full custody of the child. I don't know what sort of reactions or meltdowns have been happening with the development of that storyline since I have filmed this review much earlier on, but I will say that it's been fun to watch the drama escalating as I've rewatched the episodes in order to make these reviews, because I knew that we would eventually be arriving to this point of reconciliation. It doesn't mean that Austin and Sue are in love, obviously not, but they have had a baby together, and they have finally reached the point of doing what they should, which is put aside their differences in order to co-parent in a healthy way. Sue told Austin she didn't want him to leave her and that they have a non-traditional marriage, so they should just be non-traditional parents. Describing them co-parenting as non-traditional is more so a reference to the time period than anything else. You can find plenty of parents today that know how to effectively co-parent, but the show takes place in the 1800s, so they haven't figured some of those things out yet. Sue finally had her realization that she does not want Austin to be a cold and distant father like the one that she had. And there's something really heartwarming about this messaging of learning to not repeat the negative patterns of your parents and of breaking that cycle in order to do better for the new generation. And far too few people, even today, actually learn how to do that in practice. But this scene between them was just so cute when Sue apologizes and Austin gives her a small smile and he says thank you. This is what I want to see. Civility. Putting the child first. Oh, and the fact that Austin got excited about changing a diaper. Wholesome content. Sue, you have no idea how lucky you are for your time period. You've got a genius poet for a wife and a husband who wants to change diapers. This, of course, makes it all the more gut-punching when the revelation comes that Austin has been drafted. He's finally been able to reconcile with Sue and start bonding with his baby, which is more or less all he has wanted this entire time, and now it's all about to get ripped away from him. But this is exactly what war does, though. Sometimes you're just minding your own business and living your life, trying to enjoy the time that you have with your loved ones, and then the US government sends drones to destroy your home, and Hollywood in turn produces blockbusters used as recruitment campaigns in order to get more people to come and further destroy your country and steal your natural resources. Never is there a day that I'm not perpetually exhausted by the military-industrial complex. Speaking of war, shall we talk about Henry's whole story and Colonel Higginson continuing to be the personification of white guilt? Honestly, when he called Henry my brother, I nearly leapt out of my chair and left. Where would I have run away to? It doesn't matter. Anything to get away from the intense secondhand embarrassment. But I said last week in my spoiler-free review that this episode was really going to be putting a lot of focus on family and the family unit. Austin and Sue were able to have a breakthrough and reach a new understanding of how to make their family unit function better. And now Henry gets to express a whole range of familial emotions. On the one hand, we finally got to learn why he has not been communicating with his family. He has been writing to them, but he has not been sending them the letters. His reasoning is that he is worried that he will not survive, that he will not make it home, and that ultimately it would be easier for his family if they started to forget about him now. Needless to say, it's all very sad to watch. And obviously, he is wrong about these actions. It's only making them worry even more and be incredibly sad that they have not heard from him. But in addition to that family, we also have a new found family element in a way, because he has this unit of black soldiers that he has been tasked with helping to pass an upcoming uniform inspection. There's this really sweet camaraderie that has developed because Henry is separated from his own family, and the world feels like it's falling apart. But in this moment, what he is able to do is help these men. His family, more specifically his wife, has helped him to learn how to sew, so he is able to help them patch up their clothes and look the part the way that they need to in order to pass this important uniform inspection. However, we then get to this repeated cycle of bureaucracy impeding progress. Higginson is going to write a strongly worded letter. Yeah, okay, I'm sure your one strongly worded letter will make all the difference. It's just this horrible state of in-betweenness that Black Americans had to be in following the abolition of slavery, where on the one hand they had this newfound freedom, but they were not being fully recognized as people. I was really glad that they included the line, "We're at a war with a whole bunch of racists who are suffering from economic anxiety," because that's exactly what it was for the white people in power during all of this. You had white Americans who wanted to keep slaves because they did not want to have to pay workers. You had people who decided to pass what is called the 3/5 Compromise, which stated that Black Americans counted as 3/5 of a person, which would allow those non-South states to have inflated numbers when determining how many electoral votes they would get. Yeah, for those of you who have never studied the US political system or the history behind it, and you find yourself very confused every 4 years because you don't understand what electoral votes are, that's what they are, and that's where they come from. This war, the Civil War, was being waged by white people over money and political power. That line about economic anxiety is completely accurate, and that line is also important to include because it draws a clear distinction between those people that I just mentioned and the Black soldiers the show is introducing to viewers who want to fight for their fundamental human rights that have been deprived from them. We can see that Henry has had enough, so it'll be fun to see what he does next. No spoilers though, obviously. Despite the less than favorable outcome of the uniform inspection, I still really enjoyed this part of the episode and how we still got to have some lighthearted moments, Michael Jordan jokes. It's such a treat having this story be part of the show's final season because it grounds the stakes in a way that's entirely necessary. I know for some people, Emily's story is enough to satisfy them, but for me, this just really elevates the show as a whole in an entirely new way. Now, on to the main event of this episode. The Dickinson family is going to an asylum. Mr. Dickinson is being offered a position there, and this is an opportunity for him to impress them with his morally upstanding family. Okay, it's good that they establish early on that these asylums are bad, that they are especially horrible for women. All of that is true, and I know they took a more humorous route of having Mrs. Dickinson change her mind midway through the trip, saying that she actually does want to get institutionalized so she can have a break, get some R&R. I interpreted that as more of a means of her coming to the realization that she needs to actually care about her own well-being once in a while, instead of constantly stretching herself too thin to do the domestic chores that she believes are her duty and obligation as a housewife. when Lavinia had that line in the opening scene of her lamenting yet again and stating in no uncertain terms that she wishes she could be a housewife, it was a very "how did we get here" moment for me. How did we have Lavinia go from this vibrant, hilarious Lola Montez character to the girl crying over wanting a husband? However, at least she got her own scene in this episode. She's had hardly anything else to do this season, and we're already halfway to the finish line. Actually, past the finish line now. Anyway, Anna is great though, so it was fun to see her get to ham it up a little bit when she encountered a patient, Florence, who reveals to her that a former fling of theirs named Joseph always liked Lavinia more. And I just don't really see what the victory is here, since my takeaway from all of that was that this guy was a player. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the material that was presented, but either way, there we have it. Lavinia finally got a scene. As always, the woman of the hour, Emily Dickinson. I wouldn't say the episode probes as deeply into her character as some of the other things that we've seen in other episodes this season, but there are still some gems. Of course, the real star of her episodic material was her wanting to break out patients from the asylum and standing up for them for being unfairly institutionalized in the first place. The episode states early on how archaic and evil these asylums were. Women in particular could get locked up for a number of ridiculous reasons. They listed some of them: exhaustion, overeducation, menstruation, laziness, not being married, nymphomania, and melancholia. So basically, any woman feeling feelings, having a strong mind, will, or character, or just having a good enough time is reason enough for these men to institutionalize her. When I was watching this episode, I was admittedly a bit concerned that they were exhibiting a misleading romanticization of these types of asylums when they had Mrs. Dickinson wanting to go and stay there for a while, but thankfully Emily's episodic material sufficiently conveyed that nothing could be further from the truth. This is not a good time to stay in that type of asylum. So Emily went and found some especially troubled patients, including her acquaintance, Abby. Did I or did I not say that someone might be getting a boyfriend this season? Now, I saw a couple of tweets from accounts that follow me saying that it was going to be Toshiaki. This is probably my favorite thing that I hinted at, just because it wasn't completely obvious and given away by anyone and everyone that was promoting this show leading up to this final season release. I know I've been critical of what material they've given to Abby, and I stand by that. It was very girl bossification of war crimes, very non-intersectional feminism, but I knew when I was rewatching the season that what they were trying to do was establish a pattern of disruptive behavior so that it would make sense for her to end up in the asylum, and while there, get her boyfriend. I don't know what her boyfriend's pronouns are, but they said boyfriend on the show, so we will just say boyfriend. Episode 6 doesn't do as much as some of the other episodes to move along the plot. I would say the most significant plot developments happen for Austin and Henry, even though Henry did not end the episode in all that different a place from where he began the episode. Emotionally, he is in a new place now. He has officially had it with all of this bureaucratic nonsense. Austin getting a draft card is obviously a major development. Why else would they have put it in the do not reveal list? As for Emily, no major developments in the Emmy Sue department, but we can see what might be coming up in the remaining episodes. The season's not over yet, not a whole lot of development for Emily's poetry, although she is still maintaining her correspondence with Colonel Higginson. Really, this episode is about Emily solidifying her allegiance to her core family unit without Austin. She compared Austin to an amputated limb. Emily, baby, what are you doing? I think I've more than made it clear that if the choice is between Austin or Edward, Austin is the obvious choice, but they seem to be quite insistent now that Emily is going ride or die for her father. And he's thanking her, at least. He's saying that he appreciates Emily for standing by his side when others wouldn't. But really, thanking her is the epitome of doing less than the bare minimum. But that's a conversation for another day. I know this review is shorter, but I have papers to write for school and I have to get these reviews edited quickly because I'm recording this the day before I go to see an early House of Gucci screening. When this review gets published, it will be the official opening weekend, so definitely go see House of Gucci. Do not let another Ridley Scott banger flop. Lady Gaga is out here ready to headline the new camp classic, and I am here for it. Let's go. After next week, I should be able to take a little bit more time to discuss episodes in depth, but be sure to comment down below so that we can catch up on any of the details I might have missed when recording this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.